Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me today, whether you're joining live or you're watching this on demand. Today, we're going to be looking at how teachers can empower English language learners using the Gemini tools in Google Classroom. So let's get started. I'm Alex Galland, a digital transformation advisor for the Asia Pacific. Now, we do know two things about learning English. Firstly, we know that English is the most widely spoken language in the world. There are 1.5 billion speakers, both native speakers and people who are learning English as a second or additional language. And we also know that English is certainly not a straightforward language. In terms of English language learners, there are really kind of two camps of them. So firstly, we have students who are learning English as a foreign language. So these are students who are learning English in a non-English speaking country. English is the actual subject itself. So students learn to speak, to understand, to read, and to write in English. We can contrast this with students who are English as an additional language learners. So these are non-native English speakers who are at school in an English-speaking country, or who maybe are at a school like an international school. And these students might be quite proficient with conversational English, but they are learning academic content. They're learning the academic language of English, and they are learning their subjects, all their other subjects, through the medium of English. So there are roughly two different types of English language learners. If we consider the English as a foreign language learner, there are certain strategies that teachers can employ to help these particular learners. So for these students who are learning English as a foreign language, English certainly is just a subject like maths or history or science. And they are explicitly taught communication skills. They are taught speaking and listening skills. They are taught how to read. They are taught the fundamentals of grammar. And they do much of this through drill and practice, through games, and through real-world simulations and role plays. So let's have a look now at how we can use Gemini in Google Classroom to help to support these students. I'm going to pop over now into Google Classroom. Now, once you are in Google Classroom, on the left-hand side, fourth button down, you'll see Gemini. This particular button is only visible to teachers who are over 18. So students can't see this. Now, you don't have to be Google Classroom users to actually be able to access this. So maybe your school is using a different LMS. You can still turn on Google Classroom and teachers can still access this particular page without having to set up classes and so on. I really love this particular page in Google Classroom because it is assisting teachers to use AI. It's making things easy for them. You'll see, first of all, at the top, I have some colored buttons. And each of these are like little templates that scaffold the AI prompting process for teachers. Underneath, there are pre-prepared prompts that teachers can use. So each of these buttons actually takes the user into Gemini and the prompt is already filled out. So the teacher's hand is being held as they use Gemini. Now let's consider ourselves as the teacher of students who are non-native speakers who are learning English as a foreign language. These sorts of teachers usually have lots and lots of resources. So something they might like to do is convert one of their existing files to a Google slide. So all they need to do is click on that button, and then upload the file that they want to convert to a Google slide, say what target year level their students are, and then what they want the goal of the presentation to be. So I uploaded a verb tenses handout that I had. I've written year 9 for my target year, and I've also written ELL, as in English language learners. And I find that really does help Gemini to target what I'm doing. The goal of my presentation is to create an 8-slide presentation explaining the different verb tenses. So that's all I have to fill in, and then I click Ask Gemini. And then what happens is I'm taken over to Gemini. The prompt is completed for me with the information that I put in, and here is my lovely slide deck that it has prepared for me based on the document that I had uploaded. And I have the ability now to export this to Google Slides or as a PDF or even as a PowerPoint file. So that's a very simple thing to get started, converting an existing document to a slide deck. Something else I might like to do with slides is to create interactive activity slides, because we know if students are interacting and playing, they're more likely to understand more deeply. It's just making the learning a little bit more engaging for them. So I'm going to click on Create Interactive Activity Slides. And then once again, I have some fields that I need to fill out. So I'm going to keep going with this particular year level, Year 9 English language learners. And I want there to be 3 activities focused on the past tense. And the learning goal, I think, will be to identify and use the past tense in everyday situations. I have filled all this out. I click Ask Gemini. And once again, I'm taken into Gemini. The prompt has been pre-done for me with the information that I have put in. And here are the slides. So these aren't just straightforward slides. These are slides that I can share with the students because they are interactive. So they need to do things like just drag and drop or complete the slides. So of course, for this, I will need to have to export this to a slide deck in Google Slides. So that is just a way of making something which could be a little bit well, not boring, but, run of the mill, into something that's a little bit more exciting. And here they are exported into Google Slides, ready for my students to write and complete. What else is there for teachers of English as a foreign language student? Often we see that there are common misconceptions with students. So if I click on this particular button, I can ask Gemini for some remediation strategies for misconceptions about a topic. As you can see, there are just some fields that I need to fill in here. So again, I could write something like Year 9, ELL, and common misconceptions. I've done this before, so we don't take up too much time. 9 ELL, and the topic is 5 common misconceptions when Indonesian students learn the past tense in English. Once I've generated, you'll see that it gives me these 5 misconceptions. So misconception number 1, but then it gives me some strategies that I can use in my teaching to actually address that misconception. Fantastic. Same here, misconception number 2, and then strategies to address that misconception. So that is something which is actually very, very useful for me as a language teacher. Let's see what else there is. We know that students who are learning a new language really benefit from visuals. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask Gemini to draw a comic. So I'm going to use this little pre-done prompt for me. I'll click Draw a comic. And once again, all I need to do is fill in the details. So it's Year 9. I'm going to stick with that idea of simple past tense. So we'll do simple past and past continuous tenses. And I want a comic to be drawn up for me to help students to understand this. So I click Ask Gemini, and once again, I'm going to be taken into Gemini There's the prompt pre-done for me with the information I put in. And there is the prompt. Very nice. All about past tense, simple past and past continuous. So it's just a different way of presenting some information. Something else that EFL teachers like to do is to write a story, particularly a story that contains certain words. So I've clicked on that button, and here are the fields that I need to fill in. It's all quite straightforward. The target year, what the plot is, and so on. Here's my pre-done one. So target year, year 9. I want this story to be about a trip to the market. And you can see here, I've put in some additional notes. So I'm asking Gemini to make sure it's at a reading beginner level for English language learners. And I would like there to be some past and past continuous tense examples. And then here is where I can enter particular key words that I want included. So if I want apple to be included, I just type that in and then click enter. And that's a set of words then that will be included in my story. It's just a matter then of clicking generate, and the story is going to be generated for me in real time. So there's the story, and you can probably see some of the words that I asked to be included in there. Now, if you are a user of Classroom, you're probably familiar with Read Along. And if you're not familiar with Read Along, have a look back at, I think it was March, the March EDU on Air, because Kimberly and I did a session on Read Along then. But Read Along, which is a magnificent tool, has the option for teachers to add in their own text so that students can practice reading that text. So what I could do is just copy this, and then I could go into Read Along and paste that in. So I'm just in one of my classes here, and I'll go to create an assignment, and I should now see the Read Along button appear. There we go, Read Along. And what I can do in Read Along is I can add my own content. So let's wait for this to come up. Here we go. I can add. And this is where I can paste in the story that was just written. I might put the title here, so that makes more sense. Now you're probably noticing, I need to change the language, there you go. You're probably noticing also that I could have done it directly, I could have done it directly in Read Along. So I have this little Write with AI button. I could use that too. I could write down what I want the plot to be and any additional notes and the keywords. But the target year only goes up to 5. So I actually like to do it the other way and then paste it in the way that I've just shown you. I've pasted it in. All I need to do now is click preview, and then I can preview the story to see how it looks. And then I can attach it. Now that just means I can assign it to my students. And when I assign this to my students, I can choose for it to be something that they just read silently, or I can choose for it to be a story that they read aloud. Now, this is what I want, because I want the students to practice reading aloud, and I want them to practice doing this on their own, not in front of the teacher, but just practicing on their own so that they develop some confidence. I could also choose for students to just listen to Dia reading the story. That's an option as well. But I'll choose Read Aloud, click Done, and then it's ready to assign. So that is Read Along. We won't look at what it looks like from the student's point of view, but it is a great way of doing something with the story that you have generated in this Gemini page here. So that was writing a story. Now I've written the story. What I might like to do next is I might like to test for understanding. So I might like to generate a quiz to see how students fared with that particular text, to test their reading comprehension, if you like. So let's say this is year 9 again, ELL. I want 10 questions, And this is where it says, well, describe the topic or what you want the students to be able to demonstrate. And I'm just going to paste in this. I want Gemini to create some reading comprehension, and also in that reading comprehension include questions about simple past tense. Click generate. And what will happen now is I'll be asked whether I'm happy with these learning objectives. Yep, all seem okay to me. And I can choose the type of questions. Now I'm going to choose multiple choice and true or false because I know that they are self-marking questions, because I don't want to actually, at this point for this task, I don't want to have to do any marking. I want it to be done for me. So here we go. Here are the questions. They're looking pretty good. Looking good. Okay, great. Yeah, excellent. Some nice tense ones there too. And it's giving me some options at the bottom to maybe add some more questions or to simplify the sentence structure. I might do that as well. So I have a simpler version of this. There we go. And that is a simpler version. Now, once I'm happy with it, I can export this. And you'll see I have some options. Whoops. I can export it to forms, I can export it to docs, or I can add it to class. My tip here, if you were using Google Classroom, is to click Add to Class, because it will automatically create it as a form for you. So I'm going to click Add to Class, and then I just choose the class that I'd like it to be added to. And I want it as an assignment. Click Confirm. It will then export it to forms and get it prepared for me. So while it's doing, there we go, there it is. So I just need to put a title for this assignment and some instructions. And here is the form. So if I click on it and go to it, I will see that it is in Google Forms. I probably just need to change this as a title. Then I can go through, it's all there. The answers are all set, ready to go. Fantastic. That's excellent. So I'll just go back to here. I can choose whether I want my students working on their Chromebooks to do this in locked mode, which means they can't go to another tab and look up answers. You'll see it's automatically suggested some learning goals for me. Fabulous. I'll just click the ones that I think are appropriate. And it will automatically import the grade. So it self-marks in forms, and then it automatically gives me the grade, which is fantastic. Just need to set a topic and then assign it. So that is generating a quiz. In that instance, it was generating a reading comprehension quiz, so I could check for my students' understanding. Now, EFL teachers really like to help their students to develop their oral language. So we need to find many ways that we can give students opportunities to practice listening and speaking to English. And images are fantastic for doing this. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually create an image to spark discussion. Create an image to spark discussion. There it is. Now, once again, I just have to fill in those particular fields. So I've typed in that I want a realistic photo. I would like to visualize a marketplace. And the purpose of that is because I want students to describe what they can see in the marketplace. This is to get them looking at a picture and describing it, talking about the picture. I click Ask Gemini, and then I am taken into Gemini. There you go. The prompt has been done automatically for me. And you'll see now that I have a lovely image that I can use with the students to help them just with their oral language, so they can describe what is happening in this scene. Because I was already in Gemini, I then went a little bit further and said, well, now can you create some questions for me that I could ask my students about this picture? And so it has now given me some questions which increase in difficulty. So some beginner questions and then progressively more difficult, as you can see. So I think That is a really great tool for me to use as a teacher. In less than a minute, I have a beautiful image and I have some questions to help spark discussion if the students don't know what to say. So I think that is such a useful tool. Generate an image. If we keep going with this idea of wanting students to practice listening and speaking English, then role plays are something that English language teachers use an awful lot. And what we're going to use to create some role play scenarios is this one, create engaging discussion prompts. So I need to click on create engaging discussion prompts, and it will take me then to Gemini, and it will just ask me a few questions. So it's saying, could you tell me about how you plan to use these questions? Let's go to one that I completed earlier. So here, go up to the top. I said, all right, I'm going to do some role playing with my grade 9 EFL students to practice oral language. And then it's saying, okay, what's the main topic? And I said, shopping in the market. And I want vocab to include fruit, vegetables, flowers, numbers, and colors. Okay, fantastic. What level? Beginner. That's very helpful. Thank you. Is there anything else I should know? I said I wanted some instructions and sentence scaffolds. So here we go. It has given some lovely little scenarios for pairs to practice their oral conversation. And it's given some sentence scaffolds as I asked for. So some sentence starters for the shopper and some sentence starters and some other sentences for the stall holder. Scenario 2, scenario 3, 4, and so on. I just went a bit further after that because it asked me if I wanted any refinements. So I said, yes, can you maybe add some emojis to help the students? And it added a few emojis, which was quite fun. So really simple again, because I was guided by Gemini. All I had to fill out were those 2 fields. I didn't have to think of that very lengthy prompt. I didn't have to think of this long prompt. Gemini did that for me. It was pre-instructed. So you can see how using Gemini in Classroom just makes things so easy for the teacher. So they were some examples of how we can use Gemini for helping teachers to focus and develop those explicit communication skills for students who are learning how to speak, write, read in English. Let's now consider some strategies for EAL learners. So these are English as an additional language learners. These are learners who are learning English in an English-speaking country or in a predominantly English-speaking school, like an international school, or in a bilingual school where some of the subjects are in English. Now, it's really important for teachers who teach EAL students that they don't equate language capability with cognitive capability. So just because these students don't have the language to express what they know doesn't mean they don't know some of that subject matter for individual subjects. So it's very important for EAL teachers to scaffold the language, but not the content. And for these students, they really benefit from visual supports, from subject-specific vocabulary lists, from bilingual support, so support in their native language. They benefit from sentence starters and from the use of graphic organizers, and also from re-leveled texts. So let's have a look now at how we might again use some of those great starting points in Classroom with Gemini to meet the needs of EAL students and teachers. The first thing we're going to try doing is we're going to write an informational text, because often our EAL students just need information presented maybe slightly differently. So once again, we just need to enter a little bit of information. I'm going to work with a Year 7 class this time. So Year 7, ELL, And we're going to look at hydrological hazards, which just means water hazards. So we're going to, as a class, focus on the causes and impacts of hydrological hazards. So I want my informational text to be about that. I'll click Generate Learning Objectives. If I'm happy with that, I can go right ahead. And this is then what, it hasn't created anything. What it has created for me, generate. It will generate a nice informational text for me. There we go. Fabulous. Now you'll see when I'm finished with this, I can do a couple of things. I can export it to Google Docs, or I can add it directly to a class. I just click Add Class, choose which of my many classes to add it to, and say if I want it to be an assignment or material. So that's really handy that I can do it directly from within that. I don't have to save and then go to my class and then open an assignment. Just it reduces the number of clicks. So there's I've got it in my Google Doc. There's my lovely informational text. Brilliant. Now, there are a few things that I can do with this text now. Sometimes I might have learners who would benefit from this being translated. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to try another of these buttons, and that is Translate Text. And when I click on Translate Text, I can choose the languages that I would like it translated to. So I've just pasted in that big, long informational text I generated. And I'm going to choose a couple. I'll choose Arabic. Let's see, I might choose Vietnamese as well. And then click Translate. And what's happening now is it's actually working on translating the text for me, although it doesn't seem to want to do it. Come on, translate it. No, okay. Isn't that always the way? When you're doing something live, something is bound to go wrong. Well, luckily I had prepared one earlier. I had translated it and then exported it to Docs. And as you can see here, there's my Arabic translation with the English text next to it. I love that. And the Vietnamese translation with the English text next to it. So I really like that the two texts are side by side, because that is allowing the student to try in English and then verify in their home language. So that's translating. I also like that it has done it just all in once, both languages that I needed, done in one document. So that's translating some text. Now, the other thing I might like to do, because I have that text that maybe is a little bit difficult, I might like to create a vocabulary list. Because when I create a vocabulary list, what happens is the students have an opportunity to actually understand individual words that are maybe ones they are unfamiliar with, or subject-specific, content-specific words. So I just need to enter my target year, what the topic is, and this is where I can upload that Google Doc that I just worked with, the information text. So I just need to find that information text, there it is, add that, and then generate. What will happen then is it will generate a beautiful vocabulary list for me. Now, I love this because not only does it give me a definition, but it tells me the grammatical category, which as a language teacher is important. And it also puts that word into an example. So I think that is fantastic. If I didn't write ELL, by the way, the vocabulary would be quite different in terms of the definition and the example. So it would be a little bit more sophisticated. So putting ELL simplifies this a little bit. Another tip for this is you can also say include whatever your home language is, include, in this example, Indonesian translation for each word. And so you can see here, as well as the word, there is the Indonesian translation for each. So maybe that is something that would be needed for some students. The word, the Indonesian translation, the grammatical category, the definition, and then the example. Absolutely fantastic. This, of course, can then be exported to Google Docs or added directly to a class. And here's an example of it exported to Google Docs. Fabulous. Of course, I could then take this, if I was a bit more proficient with using AI, I could take this into Gemini, that particular Google Doc, and ask Gemini to create some flashcards for me. So that's just taking it a step further. All right, let's go back. So we've translated the text, we've got the vocabulary list. We might now need to re-level the text. So it still might be a little bit too difficult for some students to actually understand. We don't want to dumb down the content, but we do want to simplify the language that is used. So we're going to re-level text. Here we go, up here. So I just need to click on re-level text. And once I have done that, again, it's just a matter of saying what year level you want it to be re-leveled at. I just made it year 4. I pulled it right down. But you can also say which words that you want to keep in there. Now, because this is a science topic, there are certain science-specific words that I know need to stay in, things like erosion or nutrients or ecosystem. So I've made sure those keywords are in there. And there's the generated text, which I can then copy again or export to Docs. So that is re-leveling the text. So we've written the text, we've translated it, we've got the vocabulary list, we've re-leveled it. Now, with this hydrological hazards, maybe some of my students are still finding it hard to grasp. So what we're going to do is we're going to visualize a concept. In visualizing a concept, we just need to, again, say what year level and what we would like to visualize. And you'll see here, apart from just writing in the topic, I've actually explicitly said, make it accessible for my ELL students. And I could choose it to be a diagram or whatever. I've decided I would like it to be a realistic photo. Ask Gemini, and we are taken into Gemini with that prompt pre-filled out for us with a really fantastic photo that I can use with my students to help to explain that concept and to bring it to life a little bit for them. Now, of course, if they're still having difficulty, there are some other things that we could do. We looked at drawing a comic before, but maybe drawing a comic is a good idea again because I'm combining images with words so that students can really understand a concept. So I've written the same thing, hydrological hazards, make it accessible for my ELL students. And it's taken me into Gemini again, prompt done for me. And there's my lovely comic, which is written perfectly for the level that my students can comprehend. In terms of keeping that idea of text and images, I can also create an infographic. So same thing with the infographic. Sorry, here we go. Create an infographic. Here we go. There, that one. Same thing. I just have to fill out the details, what the topic is, and describe how I want it to look. So I want the infographic style to be informational. And then this is what it has done for me. So once again, images and words. I'm not dumbing down the content, but I'm just making the language a little bit more accessible and providing opportunities for students to actually see that language. Now, we can also, using this, provide opportunities for students to hear the language. And to do that, we can create an audio lesson. This is quite a new one. This is so fun, the audio lesson. So I click on that, and I'm prompted once again to enter my year level, the topic, and it will come up with the learning objectives for me. And then it literally creates this conversation between a teacher and a student. Let's hear some of it.
Today we are going to explore why water sometimes becomes a danger to us through floods and droughts. We will look at how heavy rain, human activity...
You get the idea. I can export in 2 ways. I can export to my drive and I can export to slides. So if I export to drive, it exports just that audio file. So I could play that for my students to just listen to. If I export to slides, it actually exports the dialogue, one per slide. And so there are some fun things I could do with this. I could have the audio playing and then show this on the screen at the front of the room, maybe, for them to follow along. Or I could give it to the students and they could role play it. Maybe one of them could be the teacher and one of them could be the students. Again, it's giving them another way of accessing the content and being exposed to some of the academic vocabulary. Finally, once we've done all that, they should be quite familiar with the hydrological hazards and the causes and effects of that. So I might now want to test their understanding, and I might want to assess their knowledge, assess their depth of knowledge. I really like this one. So assess their depth of knowledge. For this, I'm taken directly to Gemini. So straight away to Gemini. And Gemini will just ask me some questions. How do you plan to use these questions? So I've said, I want it to be formative assessment for my Year 7 students. And then it's saying, what do you want to focus on? I uploaded that informational text, but I also said causes and impacts of hydrological hazards. Is there anything else I need to know? And I said, just 3 questions per level. And here they are. So these depth of knowledge questions that start off at just basic recall and then get progressively harder, a bit more higher order thinking. So there are the questions. Really terrific. Now I like that. It asked if it wanted a visual or a glossary support created. So I said, yes, why not? Like, how beautiful is that? But it's just asking me the questions. It's supporting me. And then it's created this visual concept map, which is okay. But then I want to show you this. This is a cool little trick. I said, put the questions into and then if you type in the @ signs, I'll just show you down here. If you type in @ you get this little menu and you can choose Google Docs if your Workspace is connected. So I just said, put the questions into a Google Doc. And there, it's put the questions into a Google Doc for me. Isn't that fabulous? So what it looks like now is the beautiful visual vocabulary card. It's not that visual, the glossary anyway, the glossary, and then the assessment questions. All done, ready for me to give to my students for them to complete. Fabulous. So that's depth of knowledge. Again, questions that are testing for understanding. I haven't dumbed it down, but I've just made it a little bit more accessible because I've actually, Gemini's actually given me some scaffolds here, some sentence scaffolds that some of my students can use. So that is assessing for understanding after we've done all of that preliminary work leading up to it. 2 more things I want to show you in Google Classroom before we finish. We've looked at this Gemini tab, which is brilliant with these templates and these pre-filled prompts in Gemini. But we, of course, have the ability to add gems and to add Gemini notebooks to our classes. And I'm sure you already know this, but this is just so fabulous that I can do this directly in Classroom. So here we go. I'm in Classroom, and you see I have the ability in Create to add a notebook or to add a gem. Let's try adding a gem first. I want to show you what it looks like if you haven't done this or you haven't done it for a while. I can select an existing gem. So maybe I have some gems that support students in their writing. I think I do actually. I have a writing assistant. So maybe that's what I want them to use. But I also might want to set one up from scratch. And you can see that there are some options here now. So I'm going to click on Study Partner. And then I just choose which content from my Google Classroom I want this to be a study partner for. Of course, it's for my water hazards. And then I click Create Gem. What it's doing is it's creating a gem that will help students to understand or deepen their understanding about, in this case, hydrological hazards. So tell me what grade you're in. I have to, as a student, answer all of these questions. And then it is actually going to help me write something. It's helping me. I said I'm doing a report. So it's helping. It's not giving the answer for me, as you can see, but it's helping me with my thinking, and it's helping me to put together a paragraph. That is brilliant. It's like having a little tutor sitting beside me, the student. The tutor is helping me, and it's meeting me exactly where I am, giving me positive affirmation, but really pushing me to do my very best. So I think that is a fantastic tool, because we know that non-native speakers do struggle when it comes time to writing academically. And I think using something like this could be a great tool for those students to use. Of course, I can also upload a notebook, a Gemini notebook. So I might, for instance, have a Gemini notebook which has lots of resources to do with floods and other hydrological hazards. And as a teacher, I can make a variety of things. So I uploaded that informational text here, for instance, and I could create a quiz just about that text. Or I uploaded the vocabulary, and where is the vocabulary? Upload the vocabulary, and I could create flashcards just based on that vocabulary. I could create audio overviews, video overviews, the usual in Gemini Notebook. And these can all then be available to my students. So what I would do is I would just add Notebook LM, so Gemini Notebook, and I would choose one of my existing notebooks, because I have this great floods one that I can use. And that is then available for my students to access. As a student, this is me as a student now, you'll see I can't add any more sources. I can chat, so I can chat with the sources to deepen my understanding, iron out any misconceptions, and I can access the resources that my teacher has created. So once again, I'm being presented with the information visually, I'm being presented with the information orally, I'm being presented with the information in both an audio-visual way with the little video here. And I can interact with the quiz and interact with the flashcards and interact with the mind map. So it is helping me to understand some of that academic language. So they were some strategies that we can use using Gemini in Classroom to help students who are in an English-speaking environment as they are learning other subjects using the medium of English. So to finish up this evening then, we explored at the beginning how English as a foreign language students can benefit from the explicit teaching of grammar, from drill and practice of grammar, and from things like having misconceptions addressed. And we can use Gemini in Classroom to address that. We can use Gemini in Classroom to convert all those grammar files that you have into slides and to make them interactive, to make it come alive. And we can use Gemini in Classroom to help us with our teaching by giving some strategies to address common misconceptions. We know that EFL students really benefit from visual supports. So we can use Gemini to create comics, for instance. We know that EFL students really like or benefit from reading aloud. So we can write stories and have them listened to or practice reading them aloud in read along. We can create quizzes to support that. We can create images and role play prompts in Gemini in Classroom. And then in terms of our EAL students, we can do all of these things, write texts and then do things like translate them, create vocab lists, visualize some of that information for them too, and then give students an opportunity to have information presented in those various forms. So lots to do then for students and for teachers, lots of possibilities. It is great that we are giving our students the opportunity to learn a new language. English might be difficult, but whereas one language sets you on a corridor for life, as Frank Smith says, 2 languages open every door along the way. So I hope you've been able to grab something from this afternoon's session. Thank you for joining in, and I'll see you next time.